And good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas, gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is July the 1st, widely observed as Canada Day, marking the 1867 Confederation of Canada. It's also recognized in the U.S. as the start of the second half of the year. I got the hiccups. 182nd day of the year. Just 183 days remain to the year's over with. And we will go and start a new year. Well, it's also National Postal Workers Day. Annual U.S. observance to appreciate mail carriers. And there's a lot of fun observances. Celebrations like International Joke Day and National Creative Ice Cream Flavors Day, American Zoo Day. Well, on that note, let us go see what stories we have in the news, because there's always something going on. Well, Riley Gaines and Michaela Skinner send messages to Simone Biles on women's sports debate after the Supreme Court ruling. Just over a year ago, Simone Biles came at Riley Gaines. And now infamous ex-post, Biles called out Gaines for speaking up about a transgender pitcher who won a Minnesota girls softball championship, and mocked Gaines' body, saying, bully somebody your own size, which would ironically be a male. It ignited the biggest pop culture flashpoint in the Save Women's Sports movement. Now, a year later, Gaines has a close ally in Biles' former U.S. Olympic gymnastics teammate, Michaela Skinner. Gaines and Skinner celebrated Supreme Court's decision to uphold state law that protects women's sports on Tuesday. Sent a message to Biles a year after the infamous social media feud. I don't know why a female would want to protect the transgender sports movement. Well, socialism has gone west as the Democratic Socialist of America backed challenger oust a longtime Democrat. Representative Diane DeGetti, Democrat of Colorado, 30-year incumbent, lost to a Democratic Socialist of America backed challenger in a high-profile primary on Tuesday evening. Malat Quiros, a 29-year-old socialist, debated DeGetti in a Democratic primary for a deep blue House seat anchored in Denver. That's according to the Associated Press. And scored a major victory for the socialist left on Tuesday evening. DSA has been aiming to cast against loss as evidence of its growing momentum after a slate of socialist candidates won Democratic primaries in New York City last week. According to what the DSA wrote in a social media post last week, today the East Coast, next week the Mountain West. I frankly never thought I'd see this country heading for socialism, but the Democrats are taking us there as fast as they can. If elected in November, Quiros, who was born in Ethiopia, gained the ranks of the far-left group known as the Squad and become one of a handful of House chamber outspoken socialists. And not surprisingly, the millennial challenger was endorsed by Senator Bernie, look at me, I'm a socialist Sanders, independent of Vermont. AOC, Democrat of New York, and the anti-incumbent leftist organization Justice Democrats. Controversial socialist streamer Hassan Piker, who has said Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel, and praised the Chinese Communist Party, also backed Quiros' insurgent primary run. We shall see what comes of that. Well, conservative firebrand cruises to a primary win despite fighting with Trump. Lauren Boebert, Republican of Colorado, clinched a Republican primary after running unopposed to represent Colorado's 4th Congressional District on Tuesday, setting herself up to pursue a 4th term. Despite notable clashes with House GOP leadership and President Trump, Boebert emerged from her primary largely unscathed, separating herself from 3 other Republicans who voted with Democrats to advance the Epstein Files Transparency Act. If reelected in the state's November 3rd general election, she'll be the only one remaining next Congress among fellow GOP rebels. Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky; Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia; and Representative Nancy Mace, Republican of South Carolina. Greene, once outspoken backer of the president, resigned her seat at the beginning of the year when the two split on foreign aid, government transparency, and federal spending. Now, although he's still in office, Massey lost a primary bid to a Trump-backed challenger earlier this year, and Mace, who ran for governor in the Palmetto State, fell woefully short of capturing the GOP nomination after Trump declined to endorse her. Well, we'll see what happens in the election. State Department announces a total compliance from Venezuelan government and relief efforts after Maduro arrest. Trump administration said it has complete support from the Venezuelan government amid humanitarian efforts just months after the removal of former dictator Nicolas Maduro. That removal sparked rage among the president's opponents. After magnitude 7.2 and 7.5 earthquakes struck the northern part of the South American nation last week, the American government stepped in to help in a move that the administration says has been welcomed by the Venezuelan government and citizens alike. We've seen total compliance from the interim authorities of Venezuela as a result of the unprecedented response by the U.S. to these deadly earthquakes, according to a State Department official. Well, a lot of the old school dictators are falling by the wayside, finally. Well, Wilson Contreras, at the center of a benches clearing scuffle, throws a helmet at the Nationals pitcher. Absolute bedlam broke loose at Fenway Park on Tuesday night. The Red Sox and Nationals turned a regular June game into the biggest baseball brawl of the season after Boston hothead Wilson Contreras completely lost it. Commissioner Rob Manfred can't get on a plane fast enough. All started in the 4th inning when Nationals right-hander Cade Cavalli punched out a visibly frustrated Contreras and barked at him to sit down. Contreras immediately erupted, charged the mound, and dugouts and bullpens erupted as the infield turned into a full brawl. Contreras eventually broke free from the sea of players trying to hold him back and reignited the chaos. Things in the boiling point when Contreras leapt into the air and hurled his batting helmet directly at Cavalli. Well, if you can't keep your temper under control, I would suggest staying home. A Kansas college student drowns after jumping into breathtaking destination with deadly track record. Well, 21-year-old Wichita State University student drowned after jumping into a popular Oregon swimming hole where authorities say the water is cold enough to cause immediate physical shock. Kenny Turong of Wichita, Kansas, was visiting Tamalich Falls, which is commonly known as the Blue Pool, with friends on Friday evening when he jumped into the water and was not able to get back out, according to the county sheriff's office. Dispatchers got a 911 call at 8:47 that evening on June 26th, reporting that a man had gone into the pool located off Highway 126 and was struggling. Witness described him struggling as he swam toward the shore before submerging, according to Undersheriff Micah Smith. Despite the best efforts of those at Tamalich Falls who tried to help him and the first responders who arrived in response to the 911 call, Kenny did not survive. The Lane County Sheriff's Office, and Upper McKenzie Rural Fire responded to the remote area Friday evening. According to Smith, our thoughts are with the family and friends of Kenny Turong of Kansas during what's an unimaginable time. He was a finance major at the W. Frank Barton School of Business and a member at large of the Cummings Student Management Investment Fund, according to Wichita State University. Well, conservatives hailed Justice Thomas for a truth bomb about ruling protecting women's sports. Conservatives rallied around Justice Clarence Thomas on Tuesday as he wrote about the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that upheld state laws barring biological men from women's sports. Thomas followed the High Court's ruling to uphold state laws preventing transgender athletes from participating in women's sports with a concurring opinion saying men and boys with gender dysphoria are not women or girls, even if they believe they are. Sex has immutable biological characteristics. It's binary, and man and woman, boy and girl are the terms that correspond to adults and children of each sex. He also went on to say to use language to obscure reality to show indifference regarding the truth is to lie to the public and cease to treat our fellow citizens as equals. This concurrence was touted by numerous conservative public figures as they celebrated the ruling. We'll see how many refuse to follow the Supreme Court decision, and there are those who have already announced they will. Iran refuses more U.S. talks as Qatar says no high-level meetings are taking place at this point in time. Iran's accusing the U.S. of politicizing the World Cup as tensions over diplomacy, sanctions, nuclear issues, and Gulf security continue to collide. President Trump is warning gasoline retailers to cut prices before July 4th, saying his administration is watching for gouging at the pump. U.S.-Iran diplomacy remains shaky in Doha, with Qatar mediating over $36 billion in frozen Iranian funds, while Tehran insists interim deal terms have to be implemented before final talks begin. Shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is rebounding after weekend attacks, easing some immediate pressure on one of the world's most critical energy corridors. UAE is moving aggressively outside of OPEC, with June crude and condensate exports hitting a record 3.7 million barrels a day. Death of a senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps naval officer in a car crash has sparked speculation it was more than an accident, with analysts pointing to possible foreign involvement. Iran's chief negotiator, Mohammad Bakir Galbaf, said Tehran will not enter into any further negotiations with the U.S. until the terms of a memorandum of understanding are implemented. United Kingdom maritime trade operations raised its maritime security threat level for the Strait of Hormuz to substantial, warning of an elevated risk of floating sea mines. Vice President Vance said the U.S. holds all the cards in negotiations with Iran, arguing the Trump administration is in a win-win position. The problem is, Tehran believes they won the war. Well, the fitness influencer says Lufthansa told her she looked naked, forced her to zip up before boarding the flight. Fitness influencer Elisa Pills said she was prevented from boarding a Lufthansa flight from Berlin to Austria till she covered up her athletic outfit. An airline employee repeatedly called her naked during the encounter as temperatures reached 30 degrees Celsius, that's 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Pills, who's 24, who boasts more than 500,000 followers on both Instagram and TikTok, shared a video describing the confrontation while preparing to board the Lufthansa flight during the summer heat wave. The video has since circulated wildly on social media, where Pills questioned whether the airline has a dress code for passengers and criticized what she described as the employee's treatment of her. Said she was waiting to have her boarding pass scanned when a Lufthansa employee stopped her from boarding. According to Pills, the employee told her, "You can't board like that," before telling her that she was naked in his opinion. Said she was wearing a matching athletic top and shorts and questioned why why the outfit was considered appropriate in the summer heat. She said, "What am I supposed to put on? What should I wear? It's clothing." According to Piltz, the employee told her she wasn't wearing normal clothes and instructed her to put something over her outfit before she'd be allowed to board the flight. Said she put on a jacket and then told she also had to zip it up completely up before being allowed to proceed. And then the employee went on to blame her for delaying the boarding process. According to Piltz, the employee told her, "Because of you, we're now delayed. Because of you, the whole flight's delayed because you're holding up all the traffic here." Said she simply asked for an explanation because she never heard of an airline dress code. She also claimed men wearing shorts are allowed to board in the same flight without being stopped. But influencer said the incident was less about whether Lufthansa has a clothing policy than the way she said she was treated by the employee. Said the attitude was just absolutely unacceptable. Well, there's a lot of, I guess you can call them pocket Hitlers in almost every field. Well, authorities identified the woman killed in an alligator attack while swimming with friends in Central Florida. Authorities identified the woman who was tragically killed Sunday after an alligator, believed to be a very large 13-footer, bit her arms off while she was swimming with friends in the Econlockhatchee River in Central Florida. Brittany Clark of Orlando was swimming near the Bar Street trailhead in the Little Big Econ State Forest when the attack happened. Taken to a hospital as a trauma alert, but died from her injuries on the way, officials said at a Monday afternoon news conference. Sunday's deadly attack, detailed in a 911 call, was the second alligator attack in 24 hours in Central Florida. The third reported in the region in a week, according to FWC officials. The 911 caller said, "Bad, real bad, please hurry. She's losing a lot of please hurry. Somebody got bit by a gator." Excuse me. Well, we've got a retail giant who's instituted what they're calling quiet hours. Sephora, who has joined Walmart and Target with new quiet hour shopping experience. The beauty store is going to lower music and screens and scents in U.S. stores to support sensory-sensitive shoppers. I know at a local store that we don't go in anymore, my wife was confronted by the assistant manager, a UTEP star, we were later told, about the fact she asked that the elevator music be reduced so that she could actually carry on a conversation with employees. When he told her people like her weren't needed in his store. When I talked to management, I was told he was a star basketball player at UTEP. What he said was law. So they lost some customers who used to spend a lot of money there. Anti-Trump senator defeated by far-left rival after heated gubernatorial primary. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser defeated Senator Michael Bennet, Democrat of Colorado, in Colorado's Democratic primary for governor yesterday, blocking Bennett's attempt to move from the Senate to the governor's residence and putting Weiser in a position as the favorite to replace term-limited Democratic Governor Jared Polis. Weiser's win over Bennett, a three-term senator and former 2020 presidential candidate, marked a major upset in one of the most closely watched Democratic primaries of the year. The winner of the Democratic nominations favored in November in a state where Democrats have dominated recent statewide elections. So I guess now the socialists are going to start taking over. Was a probe into subversive anti-AI Singham network is enormous, according to former Treasury advisor. Former Treasury senior advisor and chief speechwriter Sam Lyman says the Southern District of New York's investigation into the finances behind the activist network tied to American Marxist businessman Neville Roy Singham marks one of the most significant developments in the federal government scrutiny of the organization and far-left protests in the U.S. Came out that the demonstrators are being paid $25 an hour to demonstrate. $25 an hour, I'd go demonstrate. Enormous development. It's an enormous development because it's one of the first legal actions that takes a deeper look into this network, which is among the most subversive political networks in the U.S., according to Lyman told Fox News. Lyman was reacting to Fox News' exclusive report that U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton from the Southern District of New York has opened a grand jury investigation into the finances behind Singham's sprawling activist network. Former Treasury official now serves as head of research at the Bitcoin Policy Institute. Released a new report on Monday, obtained by Fox News, examining Singham's network's role in organizing opposition, artificial intelligence infrastructure, and data center development across the country. Well, we'll see if anybody has the intestinal fortitude to move ahead with such an investigation. Well, an angel mom has turned the tables on sanctuary politicians with some basic questions about their priorities. Mother of an 18-year-old college freshman killed in March by a criminal illegal immigrant asked lawmakers on Tuesday to look her in the eye and explain why people here illegally matter more than American citizens. Delivering emotional testimony during a congressional hearing on sanctuary policies. I will point out that a lot of elected officials do have the belief that illegal immigrants matter more than U.S. citizens. I had my own congressional representative who I helped get elected. When I complained to her about issues with the VA, told me very clearly that she didn't have time for the little problems of disabled veterans. She had to worry about the needs of undocumented immigrants. They counted far more than the needs of disabled veterans. And that's a hell of a note for an elected official to take. But she's the darling of the Democrats in this area. Well, Taylor Swift's rumored Madison Square Garden wedding faces a massive hurdle, according to a celebrity planner. It's going to trade sold-out concerts for wedding bells, apparently. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce really plan to walk down the aisle at Madison Square Garden on July 3rd. They have to pull off the ultimate makeover. Reports and speculation continue to swirl over whether Madison Square Garden can play a role in the couple's wedding plans. Luxury event designer Larry Walsh told Fox News the iconic arena would require a dramatic transformation to shed its concert identity and become a romantic setting fit for a ceremony. Well, if you got the kind of money those two have, I guess you can throw it around. Well, let's see what our story for today is. And the peanut gallery is tuning up. You know, this is her favorite day of the week. It's trash collection day, and she hates the trash people. We've been talking about conspiracy theories, and there's been a lot of conspiracy theories tossed around over the last few decades. One that I've investigated a great deal about is one of the classic conspiracy theories that actually shaped the world. The JFK assassination. It was a sunny November day in 1963. President Kennedy rode through the streets of Dallas, Texas in an open-top convertible. Streets were packed with cheering crowds, a scene of optimism that quickly turned to horror when shots rang out, and within moments, Kennedy is mortally wounded. And that assassination... Let me deal with the... Now, you have to keep in mind, In 1963, it was a different world than what we have today. This country was captivated by President Kennedy and his beautiful First Lady. He was a leader who symbolized hope and progress and a commitment to tackling urgent issues of the time: civil rights, space exploration, Cold War diplomacy. Represented the potential for a stronger, more united America. But on that day in November 1963, that promise of leadership and momentum was violently cut short. As his motorcade moved through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, 3 gunshots echoed through the crowd. President Kennedy was hit twice. First bullet passed through his neck, and the second hit his head. Texas Governor John Connally, seated in front of him, was also injured. They were rushed to Parkland Hospital. Kennedy was pronounced dead shortly after arrival, leaving the nation in shock and disbelief. In the aftermath, President Lyndon "I'm going to be King" Johnson established the Warren Commission to investigate the tragedy and provide an official narrative to the American people. Now, I would point out, you never hear anything about a homicide investigation, which under Texas law should have taken place. It became a political investigation, don't you know? After extensive examination, the commission concluded a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, is responsible for Kennedy's assassination. Oswald, a former U.S. Marine known for his Marxist sympathies and defection to the Soviet Union, was found to have acted independently. Positioned on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, Oswald said to have fired 3 shots as the motorcade passed below. Now, one main point of the commission's findings was the so-called magic bullet theory. And according to this theory, 1 bullet passed through Kennedy's neck before injuring Connally in multiple locations. And this report said the bullet's path was consistent with the motorcade's layout and the injuries both men sustained. And although this explanation has been essential to the official account, its acceptance has faced challenges from those who question the bullet's trajectory and the forensic evidence backing it up. Oswald's background was meticulously examined in the investigation, even his elementary school performance. He was an enigmatic figure, trained as a marksman in the Marines, ideologically complex individual, reported had pro-communist leanings, and a man who had once defected to the Soviet Union only returned to the U.S. with a wife who was a relation of a senior KGB official. On the day of the assassination, he was arrested at the Texas Theater, where he had fled after allegedly killing police officer J.D. Tippit, even though witnesses described somebody who looked totally different than Oswald. The Warren Commission found that he had actually been the one to do it. We couldn't have 2 killers running around on the same day in Dallas. Well, Oswald was detained on charges related to both deaths, but would never stand trial. 2 days after his arrest, nightclub owner Jack Ruby shot Oswald in the basement of the Dallas police headquarters. That killing, which was actually broadcast on live TV, sealed Oswald's fate and silenced the primary suspect. Now, Ruby's action and Oswald's death left the commission without a key witness. Ruby claimed he acted out of grief for Kennedy. His ties to organized crime and introduced more complexity into the already confused case. Nonetheless, the commission dismissed any notions of conspiracy, asserting Oswald acted alone with no evidence of a broader plot or additional shooters involved, in spite of evidence to the contrary. The Warren Commission's report, which comprised nearly 900 pages, documented evidence from ballistics and eyewitness accounts and Oswald's known associations, and it concluded he alone bore responsibility for Kennedy's death. The official account, meticulously compiled, stands as the government's definitive statement on the events of that day, despite a lot of questions and emerging theories. Now, for decades, the Warren Commission report has stood as the government's official version of President Kennedy's assassination. A lone nut gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, acted alone, ended the life of a promising leader and altering the course of history. But as time has passed, cracks in this story have begun to surface. And in fact, those cracks have resulted in a full-blown collapse of the government's position. The evidence doesn't just suggest an alternative view. It screams the American public was lied to. Kennedy's death was not a random act, but a coldly calculated event with layers of deception. If you want to investigate it, you need to start with the single bullet theory, the linchpin of the Warren Commission's findings. And according to that 900-page report, a single bullet fired from Oswald's rifle managed to hit both Kennedy and Texas Governor Connally, causing multiple wounds along a bizarre trajectory that defies logic. Forensic evidence, video footage from the Zapruder film, and analysis by experts over the years have exposed glaring inconsistencies. The bullet's path simply doesn't add up without the presence of another shooter. Single bullet fantasy was designed to make the lone gunman story plausible. In reality, it's anything but plausible. Excuse me. Then there's the undeniable acoustic evidence. An overlooked recording from a Dallas police officer's radio captured audio of 4 gunshots, not 3, as the government insists. This extra shot points unmistakably to a second shooter, one the official story conveniently omits to discuss. The 1970s House Select Committee on Assassination even went as far as to conclude a probable conspiracy was behind the assassination. But despite this stunning admission, the identity of any additional shooters remains officially unknown. In spite of the finding of the House Select Committee, very little additional investigation was done. Eyewitness testimonies paint an even grimmer picture of the day. Many bystanders reported hearing shots from multiple directions, especially from the infamous grassy knoll, detail ignored by the commission but impossible to dismiss. Some witnesses even saw figures lurking in that area, but the government chose to bury those accounts. You might ask why. And the reason is because acknowledging those witnesses would dismantle the entire lone gunman story they were so desperate to sell to the public. To reinforce his point, consider the mysterious presence of the so-called babushka lady in Dealey Plaza, figure seen filming from a crucial vantage point at the time of the assassination. And despite appearing in multiple photographs and video, she was never identified, nor was her film footage ever located, an oversight that raises further questions about hidden evidence and suppression of key testimonies. And this figure, along with other overlooked eyewitnesses, highlights the deliberate choices in the investigation to ignore critical elements that could disrupt the official narrative. So if we're going to look at it, let's look at it from the point of view that there was a lone gunman. If that was the case, does the rest of the narrative line up? Oswald himself, supposedly a skilled marksman, and according to his Marine training records, he was not a skilled marksman. His Marine records show him to be an average shooter, far from the expert sniper the official story claims he was. And yet we're told that he accomplished an extraordinary feat of marksmanship under extreme pressure. Far more likely, the true assassins were hidden in plain sight, and Oswald was merely a convenient scapegoat. And that deception runs even deeper when we examine Jack Ruby's actions. Ruby, a man with close connections to organized crime in Dallas, shot and killed Oswald before he could even testify, supposedly out of sympathy for Kennedy's widow. According to what Ruby said, he didn't want Jackie to have to come back and go through all that on the witness stand. So better to kill Oswald so there wouldn't be a trial. But now the true question comes out, was that really Ruby's motive? Or was he eliminating Oswald to keep him silent? There's a lot of folks who say that when Oswald was captured at the movie theater, he was supposed to be killed. Turns out the gun he had in his waistband that he tried to pull had a defective firing pin. It would not have fired. But most officers, when faced with somebody pulling a gun, tend to shoot first and ask questions later. And that's what was expected to happen. Ruby's convenient access to Oswald inside the Dallas Police headquarters hints at something far more sinister. Coordinated effort to make sure Oswald would never speak a word in court. The CIA and FBI's roles in this cover-up are undeniable. Declassified documents reveal that both agencies had been watching Oswald long before the assassination. And even more shocking, they deliberately withheld crucial information from the Warren Commission. Now, if Oswald was under surveillance, why wasn't these details presented in the official investigation? Why the secrecy? Well, clearly they had something to hide. In the years since Kennedy's death, more and more unredacted documents have come to light, hinting at covert operations and cover-ups that go far beyond Oswald or any single actor. The official story is a carefully constructed lie. There's no question about that at this point. Crafted to shield powerful interest. And as more evidence emerges, it becomes clear that Kennedy's death was a conspiracy, orchestrated and concealed by the very agencies meant to serve and protect the American people. Now, November 22nd, 1963 wasn't just an assassination. It was the beginning of a lie, one the government has spent decades defending. The reality is darker and far more complex than they ever wanted us to see. And the time has come to look past the official narrative and see Kennedy's assassination for what it truly was. A ruthless elimination by forces threatened by a leader pushing against their agendas. It was a coup carried out by some of the most powerful people in this country. Kennedy's bold vision and resistance to entrenched power marked him as a target. His defiance of the status quo challenged plans set up by powerful entities who couldn't allow his influence to derail their objectives. And the assassination wasn't just an isolated tragedy, it was the decisive move to silence a leader who threatened to reshape the system that these powerful interests control. And decades later, these forces still work to keep the truth buried, unwilling to let their secrets see the light of day. Well, it wasn't just the Kennedy assassination we were lied to about. Also, what happened at Roswell. This happened in the summer of 1947. Rancher Mac Brazil stumbled upon a scattered field of strange debris on his property near Roswell, New Mexico. And these fragments, which included rubber strips and tinfoil and thick paper-like material, didn't match anything Brazil had ever seen before. Confused and curious, he brought some of it to Sheriff George Wilcox. Wilcox, puzzled by what he had been given, contacted officials at the nearby Roswell Army Airfield. He wanted them to carry out the investigation. And to everybody's relief, the military responded quickly, collected the debris, making an initial surprising statement to the public. Walter Haut issued a press release that they'd recovered what they described as a flying disc, in other words, a UFO. That was the official announcement, which immediately grabbed national attention. The idea of a flying saucer, of course, sparked the public's imagination, leading many folks to speculate about unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial visitors. Well, just as quickly as the statement was released, the military changed its narrative. Officials at the Roswell Army Airfield retracted that claim, explained debris was not a flying disc, but rather remains of a weather balloon. These experienced military personnel didn't recognize a weather balloon when they saw one. According to this revised statement, the initial description was simply a misunderstanding of the debris Brazil had found. So with that weather balloon explanation, the incident was resolved. Public interest in the story faded. For a lot of folks, the Roswell story was closed, an unusual find misinterpreted as something more mysterious than it actually was. But the story of Roswell wouldn't stay buried. Decades later, in the 1990s, the U.S. Air Force released a new report that offered an updated official explanation. And this report claimed the debris Brazil found was not from an ordinary weather balloon, but from Project Mogul, a classified military project involving high-altitude balloons equipped with specialized sensors. The purpose of Project Mogul was to detect sound waves from potential Soviet nuclear tests during the height of the Cold War. And because of its purpose, the secrecy around the project was essential. National security, don't you know? Well, the government's revised story clarified that the flying disc announcement had been an error, corrected to protect the secrecy of Project Mogul. The military explained that any tight-lipped responses to public inquiries were due to the classified nature of Cold War projects, not to concealed evidence of extraterrestrial life. With the new report, the official narrative reinforced that the Roswell incident was simply a matter of Cold War secrecy rather than a visitation from beyond the Earth. Well, today the official stance on the Roswell incident remains that it was a misidentified military balloon project and nothing more. According to the government, the mystery at Roswell was resolved decades ago. Chapter of Cold War history closed as quickly as it began. Of course, Roswell has become a major event every year. I used to speak there until the political faction that got control of the board decided, since my books outsold the books of their favorite son, I wasn't needed. Of course, they still wanted me to advertise the favorite son, which I refused to do. So I was relegated to the scrap heap. Doesn't matter, the favorite son's book is not exactly a well thought out project. Well, you know, there's a lot of secrets in the Nevada desert. Area 51 is one of them. Hidden away in the desert, it's been the government's best kept secret for decades. Officially, it's just a military testing site. But that story actually barely scratches the surface. In fact, Area 51 is shrouded in layers of lies. After years of outright denial, the government reluctantly acknowledged the base's existence in 2013. But offer no transparency about what truly goes on there. With decades of evidence stacking up, it's clear why they take this position. Area 51 isn't hiding military technology. It's hiding extraterrestrial technology brought to Earth from beyond our world. Now, the government's official story actually crumbles under scrutiny. Area 51's proximity to Roswell is no coincidence. After the infamous 1947 crash, the weather balloon narrative was pushed to the public. Insiders have known all along that Roswell involved alien wreckage and possibly extraterrestrial bodies. That wreckage and those bodies were taken to Area 51, with scientists and military experts that spent decades studying them. Countless witnesses, former military personnel, employees, and even local residents have reported seeing strange, otherworldly objects in the skies above Area 51. Sheer volume and consistency of those accounts can't be dismissed as mere coincidence or misidentification. But the government's position is the American public is stupid. They believe what they're told. One of the most compelling sources, of course, is a man named Bob Lazar. Risked everything to expose the truth in 1989. He claimed to have worked at a highly classified facility near Area 51 known as S4, where he saw and worked directly on an alien spacecraft. And he went on to describe intricate details, the propulsion system, the antimatter reactors, even the metallic structure of those crafts. Technology is far beyond anything developed by humans. And Lazar's story didn't just introduce new details that unraveled the government's narrative. Attempts to discredit him, to erase his records, only underscored Lazar was telling him the truth the government desperately wanted to keep buried. And if Area 51 was just a military testing ground, why the extreme lengths to silence him? Nobody's ever explained that. Well, more evidence comes from the UFO sightings around Area 51, which have been relentless. For over 50 years, witnesses have reported seeing strange lights and objects defying the laws of physics. They're silent, they hover, they move at speeds no aircraft could achieve even today. The government's excuse for these sightings? Oh, experimental aircraft, don't you know? Classified. We can't talk about it. But these sightings continued long after the Cold War, when there would have been no need to test such prototypes in secret. So we truly expected to believe that all these sightings, all these years, were just aircraft experiments? Well, contrary to the government's position, the evidence is too expensive, too consistent to support the convenient dismissal. Near the underground facilities, rumored to extend far beneath the desert surface, it's said that alien technology and maybe even extraterrestrial life are stored and studied in these underground facilities. They aren't just rumors. They are documented by former employees, by satellite imagery, and those brave enough to speak out. So the question becomes, what are they hiding beneath Area 51, if not the alien wreckage from Roswell and potentially live alien beings? And the level of secrecy goes far beyond anything required for conventional military projects. But it doesn't stop at technology and research. Some sources go as far as to suggest a covert agreement between the U.S. government and extraterrestrial entities. Supposedly a treaty was signed with President Eisenhower, which allowed aliens to operate on Earth in exchange for access to advanced technology. Now, this particular theory, outrageous as it sounds, explains the government's desperation to keep Area 51 locked down. Restricted airspace, surveillance at every corner, armed patrols authorized to use deadly force. If this was just a testing site, these extreme measures wouldn't be necessary. The government's created a fortress around Area 51 to protect something far more extraordinary than aircraft. For recent years, I've seen the government carefully release limited information on UFOs, showcasing pilot footage and brief reports. In fact, the disclosure movement is picking up speed even as we speak. These disclosures are designed to pacify the public without exposing a far deeper truth. And each disclosure is tightly controlled, avoiding any mention of what's really happening at Area 51. The message is clear. They're throwing the public breadcrumbs, hoping we won't ask for the entire story. We've come out with several books on the disclosure movement. You can find them at Amazon Kindle under Ken Hudnall. And the truth is right in front of the Area 51 is not some simple military base. It's actually a vault containing secrets, a site dedicated to studying, storing, potentially replicating alien technology. The security, the secrecy, the selective disclosures all point to one undeniable fact. Area 51 is hiding something extraordinary, something the government believes we can't handle. How much longer can they keep the lid on this monumental cover-up is anybody's guess. The facts are there for anybody willing to see them, and it's time we demand the truth. Well, hand in glove with a lot of the stories about UFO crashes is the supposed secret organization that works to control all this information, control the narrative, so to speak. This organization's had many names. Somebody I have known for some time assured me in all sincerity it was actually the Illuminati. And you may ask who the Illuminati might be. Well, in 1776, Adam Weishaupt, professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, founded the Bavarian Illuminati. His vision was to establish a society that would champion the ideals of the Enlightenment: reason, science, secularism, individual freedom. In a world largely dominated by religious and anarchical authorities, Illuminati sought to foster a society governed by rational thought and intellectual advancement rather than tradition or superstition. And members were carefully selected for their commitment to these ideals. Strict secrecy was required to protect the group's activities. They operated in small, autonomous cells. Members maintained anonymity, a method designed to prevent infiltration and ensure loyalty. And the Illuminati's members included intellectuals and political figures and writers, all of whom shared Weishaupt's vision of social reform and progressive governance. Weishaupt aimed for the group to subtly influence political decisions and social norms, but he envisioned achieving these goals through enlightenment rather than open opposition to existing structures. But the Illuminati's growth and its secretive methods eventually attracted the attention of the Bavarian government. Concerned about the group's influence and potential impact on the established order, the Bavarian government banned all secret societies in 1785, specifically targeting the Illuminati. Weishaupt fled Bavaria and the organization was officially disbanded. There's an interesting corollary to this story. According to a number of early writers and researchers, Weishaupt had a interesting appearance. He looked enough like George Washington to be his brother. And according to one school of thought, he came to this country and removed Washington and took his place. Because a lot of what Washington and the founding fathers came up with was very similar to some of the things that Weishaupt and his group talked about. Now, although the Bavarian Illuminati had a relatively brief existence, its secretive nature and ambitious goals captured the public's imagination. Over the years, rumors began to circulate about the group's continued existence, theories suggesting the Illuminati had simply gone underground and continued to operate discreetly, influencing global events from behind the scenes. In modern times, the Illuminati is evolved into a powerful symbol within conspiracy theorists. Theories about a new Illuminati describe it as a secret society with far-reaching influence over global politics and finance and media. According to these theories, this modern Illuminati comprises influential families and figures often associated with elite political and financial institutions. Families such as the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are frequently mentioned as central members, allegedly manipulating global markets and political systems to consolidate their power. And symbols like the Eye of Providence and the pyramid are commonly linked to the Illuminati and claimed to be hidden in corporate logos and currency and various forms of media. Supposedly subtle signals of the group's pervasive influence. I would suggest you look on the back of the $1 bill. Historically, though, there's no verified evidence to support the idea of a modern-day Illuminati or its control over world events. Scholars and historians agree that while the original Bavarian Illuminati existed briefly, there's no conclusive proof the organization survived or that it evolved into the kind of global entity described in conspiracy theories. Claims about hidden symbols and alleged insider testimonies and circumstantial links are often explained as just mere coincidence. Creative decisions are the result of misinterpretation rather than the evidence of an organized secret society. So-called experts maintain that the modern concept of the Illuminati is largely a myth, shaped by cultural fears of hidden power structures rather than rooted in historical fact. Despite all this, Illuminati theories have had a significant impact on popular culture and society. The idea of a hidden elite influencing global events appeals to those who feel distrustful of established power structures, particularly in an age of rapid social and technological change. Online platforms such as YouTube and Reddit and Facebook have enabled the rapid spread of Illuminati theories, making them accessible to a wide audience and fostering communities where these ideas are continually discussed and reinforced. Accusations of Illuminati involvement have even extended to celebrities and high-profile figures. Musicians and actors and political leaders are frequently linked to the Illuminati based on symbolic interpretation or perceived associations. Figures like Beyonce and Jay-Z and political leaders such as Barack Obama are commonly targeted, used without any concrete evidence. But their inclusion in these theories adds intrigue to the narrative and keeps the concept of a modern Illuminati alive in the public imagination. Now, the line between myth and reality regarding the Illuminati has been deliberately blurred, keeping the public unaware of a darker, more complex reality. Powerful network with a calculated agenda to establish a new world order through manipulation and control. While the Bavarian Illuminati is often portrayed as a short-lived Enlightenment group, the truth of its influence and persistence goes a lot deeper, and it didn't end in the 18th century. From its inception, the Illuminati's ambitions extended far beyond promoting reason and free thought. The group sought to infiltrate and dismantle existing power structures, religious and monarchical authorities, through covert means, reshaping society from the shadows. Operating under the guise of intellectual discourse, the Illuminati's true aim reached into politics and economics and social control. This secretive structure, with members working in isolated cells, allowed the group to operate largely invisibly while exerting influence on critical events of their time and even beyond. The official story of the Illuminati disbanded after the Bavarian government's crackdown in 1785 is somewhat misleading. Instead, the Illuminati went underground, continuing to operate behind the scenes and evolving into a far more powerful force. Rather than being dismantled, the Illuminati expanded its reach globally, infiltrating key governments and financial institutions and religious organizations, all in order to create what they called the New World Order. Claim the Illuminati's influence is limited to Bavaria is a convenient myth. Evidence points to the Illuminati's role in igniting the French Revolution, orchestrating the overthrow of monarchies, spreading revolutionary ideals across Europe. Covert meetings and correspondence between revolutionary leaders and secret societies clearly point to the Illuminati's early influence and radical shifts that changed the course of history. Today, the Illuminati's reach extends globally, quietly controlling world events. Symbols often associated with the Illuminati, such as the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, are not random designs but deliberate symbols, signaling allegiance to this hidden order. These symbols appear on global currency, government seals, popular media, subtly reminding those in the know of the power held by these people loyal to the Illuminati's mission. And credible whistleblowers have revealed the Illuminati's influence in shaping global politics and economics and culture. Figures like John Robinson and Augustin Birrell in the 19th century uncovered links between the Illuminati and various political movements, including socialism and communism and later capitalist elites. Their revelations provide a foundation for the theory that the Illuminati controls a hidden network of global elites. Declassified government records, such as those from the FBI and the CIA, which claim to debunk Illuminati involvement, appear to be part of a larger cover-up. Intelligence agencies often act in the interest of those in power, many of whom are directly connected to the Illuminati's goals. And far from providing clarity, these declassified reports only reinforce the view that the Illuminati's influence has been hidden from the official records to maintain its secrecy. The media and the entertainment industries, controlled by this same shadowy elite, play a critical role in perpetuating the Illuminati's control. High-profile figures in music and film and politics publicly display Illuminati symbols as markers of allegiance to this hidden order. And on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll talk more about hidden conspiracies tomorrow. Until then, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show, saying have a truly great evening.